Good morning and welcome back to OG Dweeb. As you may be able to hear in the background, Old Man OG is out cutting the grass and I can't get back to sleep. He's an early riser and I'm a night owl, so it makes things pretty interesting around the house sometimes. But this morning I wanted to talk to you about stalking. And if you run in the same YouTube circles that I do, with like comics and Star Wars, you'll probably know exactly what is prompting this recording. But I don't want to name names or get in any details. That's not my story to tell. But I wanted to share my own story and my own thoughts and, take them with a grain of salt. But having been through it, sometimes you have to draw a line in the sand. About 15 years ago, when I was still dating, I'd been dating this one guy for about, 6 or 7 months. And, when you first start dating people, you go on maybe one date a week, maybe 2 dates a week. And it takes a while to really get to know someone and maybe see if they have some flaws that maybe are really deal breakers. Well, as I got to know this gentleman more and more and started spending a little more time with him, I began to realize that he had a very serious drinking problem. And he wasn't willing to address it. And so I had to break it off with him. It's not something I could deal with. And I told him, I really wish you would get help and get your stuff together. He owned his own small business, and I noticed that it had begun to affect his business dealings as well. And I mentioned that to him as well. Please seek help. You got something good going here. Don't let it go to waste. And so I went about my business, and for about 3 or 4 months, everything was quiet. And in that interim, I had met my husband and we had started dating. So one day out of the blue, I get a phone call from this gentleman that I had been dating that I broke up with. And he told me that, he was getting his life back together and that he would really like to see me. And I told him, well, I'm sorry, but I'm already dating someone else that I'm happy with. And I hope things go well for you. And that was that. We had a cordial conversation, and I thought nothing more about it. So, I don't know, roughly a week later, my husband was visiting, and my husband is originally from about 3 hours away. So he had come to visit for the weekend. And it was pretty late, probably 11, maybe midnight. We were watching a movie. And this gentleman drunk called me. And my husband got on the phone and said, I know that she's already told you politely that she's not interested. I'm dating her. We're happy. Please stop calling her. I mean, my husband is not a jerk by nature. Believe me, he's got a mean streak if you rub him the wrong way. But he's like me. He doesn't like confrontation. So he was polite to him on the phone. Come on, man, just back off and leave her alone. And I figured, okay, that's got to be the end of it. But it wasn't. A couple of days later, he called me at like 1 a.m. on a work night, clearly drunk. And I said, look, man, I don't know how else to tell you. Quit calling me. He did it again the following night and the following night and the following. It was clear that he'd probably, I don't know what ended up happening to him, but I'm assuming he had lost his business or wasn't getting any contracts at that point. He was drunk calling me every night. And, obviously he knew where I lived, my phone number, he knew where I worked, had my work phone number, had my email address, and other things. And I was like, look, I finally had to get a little nasty with him. I didn't want to, but I had no other choice. I'm like, look, man, you're creeping me out. You're acting like a weirdo. I don't know what your deal is, but you're going to have to stop. I'm going to call the police if you don't quit. He still didn't stop. So I contacted the police, and my local police department was very good. And they sent an officer over right away. And I said, well, here's my phone records. I pulled them up online. So this guy is calling me obsessively. And he's drunk when he calls, and he gets belligerent with me before I hang up on him. I don't know what else to do. I don't want to put him in jail. I want him to get the help that he needs. But he's starting to scare me a little. I don't want him showing up here and causing a scene, or God knows. I had a friend that, well, a girl that I went to high school with that had got almost beat to death by someone who was treating her in this manner. And I was scared, honestly. I mean, at the time I was living alone. So they contacted him and they said, hey, look, we know that she's asked you politely to stop calling her. You're refusing. If you contact her again, you're going to be slapped with a restraining order, or in my state, it's a personal protection order, and quite possibly charged with stalking. And thank God that was enough, and he left me alone. This gentleman that is harassing two YouTubers that I follow, same gentleman harassing two different people, has been obsessively stalking these two YouTubers for over a year, according to each of the victims. And maybe it's not being seen as obsessive stalking or cyber stalking because the victims are male and the perp is male. And in this case, it doesn't seem like it's a romantic kind of thing on the part of the perp. But when we have someone obsessively tweeting about, retweeting, and then to go so far as to look into personal records, and for the length of time it's been going on for, that's not normal behavior. That's not you called me a poopy head and you're a butthole on the internet. That's not an internet argument. That is stalking. At this point, in my opinion. And what concerns me is, these gentlemen have children, spouses. Well, one has a spouse. This weirdo probably has their current addresses. And it's bad enough that they have to deal with this garbage and put up with this guy slandering them with clear falsehoods. They're clearly misproven. But to have to worry about, God knows, sending... It's very concerning that nothing has been done. And yeah, I mean, I guess it would be considered... It's more normal for a woman to report behavior like this than it would be for a man to report it. But at some point, something's got to give. It's not right, and it's illegal. Just because it's not a romantic relationship doesn't mean it's any less that it's still stalking. And this gentleman has gone way beyond any semblance of sanity, this perpetrator. And I hope that something is done. And if either of these YouTubers hears this, you'll know who I am. I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. I'm simply someone who's concerned for the safety of yourselves, your children, your spouse. Because who knows what somebody that deranged is capable of. I don't want you guys to have to sit and put up with this crap. I want you to go on with your lives and enjoy your success. So that's all I've got to say about that. It's a very sad and disgusting situation. But you guys have a good day. I'm going to try to get back to sleep for a couple hours. Talk to you later.